Oh, whose side do you take? We have two very different stories from two very dangerous guys. As a matter of fact, they damn near have the same record. Chimaev and Pereira, top of my head. Pereira's 5-0, top of my head. Chimaev 7-0. One's a champion of the world. One's predicted to be the champion of the world. Now, do you guys know what's going on here? Do you know exactly what I'm talking about now? This jumped off yesterday on Ariel. But let's back up. Let's back up to the night that Pereira won the world championship, okay? There was instant talk. Instant. There was even undertones, whether you caught them or not, within the announce booth between Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier and John Anik of Pereira and Chimaev. The undertone was of Pereira with a dominant grappler. But the moment that fight was done, and I do mean the moment that fight was done, I don't mean once it was announced and the program was done, Chimaev took to the internet. And one thing about Chimaev is we know he's not kidding. But that's relevant. It really is relevant. I appreciate that sincerity. And you want to know how we know he's not kidding? Because he doesn't say the same thing every time. One thing when Conor was very early into the gimmick, I had a critique of the gimmick, and it was advice that I gave to Conor that he did not take. And that's okay, but I'll just share the advice with you, which Conor wanted everybody. Conor came in, and he was a Stone Cold Steve Austin type. If you guys remember the Attitude Era, you know what I mean. Back then, there was good guys and there was bad guys. The bad guys hung out with the bad guys, and the good guys hung out with the good guys. Two different locker rooms, two different hotels, different flights. Good guys and bad guys, and they stay apart. But if you're a bad guy, then you're friends with the other bad guys. And the same thing with the good guys. And Stone Cold came in and flipped them both off. Stone Cold hated the good guys. He hated the bad guys, too. It had never been done. And when Conor came in, he went after everyone. He went after Jose Aldo, who really was kind of off limits. I mean, if you guys remember that time frame. He goes after 55-pounders. He ends up in an actual physical something with Uriah Faber. And Uriah Faber is MMA royalty. I mean, those two could have met up. They're close to the same size. I'm just sharing with you. You don't put your hands on Uriah Faber. And then Conor gets chest to chest and wordy with Tyron Woodley. When Tyron was the sitting world champion. Like Conor, it was everywhere. There was no allies. And I just thought that he should have one, otherwise it would take away from the sincerity. That was just my offering. Now, I bring you that example because when we know Chimaev isn't kidding, that's the only point that I'm trying to prove. When we know that Chimaev is sincere, one of the reasons we know is he doesn't say yes to everybody. He's not the way that Conor came through. He is not a Stone Cold Steve Austin. You will ask him about opponents and he will say no. He won't concede. He won't say, I think that guy can beat me. But somewhere, something, they must have crossed paths and they liked each other. Like, just a great example would be Whitaker. They asked Chimaev about Whitaker, which, by the way, that's a really interesting match. Chimaev versus Whitaker, Chimaev versus Paulo Costa. I mean, those are really, really interesting matches. Really tough from X's and O's standpoints to break down. But they asked him about Whitaker, and he said, no, as a matter of fact, I like to train with Whitaker. And when Whitaker responded, it was out of left field. He was even surprised, and he accepted the training session. But there's been a number of times like that. Neil Magny called out Chimaev more times than I can count. There's a training video online right now, if you want to Google it, of Chimaev and Neil Magny in the practice room. So, I mean, I'm just sharing for you, when Chimaev says it, he means it. Including if he says, no, that's not the guy I want. So Chimaev goes after Pereira. He goes after him full steam. Chimaev continued to go after him. Now we're days later, okay? Now we're multiple messages to the champ into this thing. DraftKings makes a line. DraftKings made a line and they favored Chimaev almost 3-1. But now all of a sudden it feels like something. You're kind of going, hey, what are you doing? The biggest sports book in the world, who's the official partner of the UFC, is making a line. Like, this is a clue. There's a clue here. And then all of a sudden Chimaev comes out with the date. He's going to fight him on the next pay-per-view, December 10th. And then we find out that they lost their main event and they lost their title. Like, things got really interesting where you're going, okay, we haven't been told anything, but behind the scenes, was there something done? We don't always have to know when a fight's made, right, guys? We don't have to know these two guys are. If they tried to make a fight, we think that's interesting. We want to know that the organization was interested in doing a fight. Maybe we'll even go a step further. Fight. Why didn't it happen? Who blinked? But it's interesting. So Chimaev's got the bright idea. They're going to do it for the World Championship. They're going to do it 185 pounds. Matter of fact, they're going to do it on December 10th. And I was very quick to defend Pereira against that challenge simply because Pereira can't make weight. And that is no secret anywhere. First off, he's got the right, absolutely, to bask in the glow, right? Everybody does, and it doesn't last long. And secondly, he just can't make weight. He's just a really big guy. I mean, December 10th means you're weighing in on December 9th. I'm just offering that this was my defense of Pereira. That isn't going to happen, but it also took some of the wind out of my sails. Like, if that match is going to go down, if we're going to do this and we're going to do this right away, we can't do it at 185 pounds. Took the wind out of my sails, no problem. Whatever. It happens every day. We're getting suggested something, right? 2 days ago, it's gonna be Jones and Ngannou, and the day after that, it's going to be Jones versus Blades, and a week ago, Jones. I mean, you understand these things change really fast. Okay, great, but then Pereira, hold on, because Pereira goes on Ariel's show. Now, I give you about 3 good minutes. Just moments ago, I gave you about 3 good minutes defending and offering evidence to my position that Chimaev is very sincere. That we can take Chimaev at his word. He doesn't play. You don't play with Chimaev. That's what it appears. Okay. I don't have those same 3 minutes on Pereira. I don't know him well enough. I just don't know of him well enough. But I'll tell you this. He went on Ariel's show, and he said that he accepted a fight against Chimaev. Not he offered, not he was willing. Not somebody suggested to him. He said he accepted a fight against Chimaev at 205 pounds. Are you paying attention to the details here? I'm throwing a lot at you. So now we're talking about a super fight. Because now the strap's not up. Now the point that I made when I defended Pereira, it shows how right I was. He's not going to get down to weight. He's just not going to do it. He's not going to do it that fast. But he will fight that fast. And if this guy wants a piece and this guy's coming up anyway, come all the way up. We'll do it at 205. There'll be nothing on the line, but we'll settle this. Whoa. Okay. Whoa. This is how tough guys handle business. This is how the actual tough guys handle business. They handle it by handling it. Yes, we are in the fight business. Let's fight. Forget about the belts. Forget about the weight class. We'll go up to 205 pounds. I just got to tell you, this is very interesting. And Pereira puts this out, but he goes a step further. He said Chimaev turned it down. Right? He said Chimaev turned it down. Chimaev lost his mind. Chimaev does not want word on the street that he turned a fight down. And I'll just go back to my initial question that I asked you 19 minutes and 12 seconds ago, which is, who do you believe? Because both stories can't be true. And while both stories can't be true, there is room for nobody lied. There is a case for nobody lied because you have massive language barriers, you have massive misunderstandings, and if Pereira represented to Ariel, thus to us, information that he believed to be true, and Chimaev is coming out and representing information through Twitter to the world that he believes to be true, neither one of them lied, but I feel as though you guys might have missed the concept. Can I condescend to you? It's not if Chimaev turned it down to start with. Did the organization offer it? Now, if the house was on fire, Dana would make decisions that perhaps he would not normally make. Everybody could understand that. But for Dana to put on a super fight that is nothing more than that, a super fight, would be a little bit of a surprise. I could just offer you historical reasons where Dana would get this match together and he would get it going. And you know what? You even got a date of December 10th for the 185-pound championship. It's very un-esque if Dana was to make that fight at 205 pounds. Doesn't mean he wasn't going to do it. I would just share for you that I think perhaps Pereira had an idea, took it to the table, it didn't happen, and therefore he believes that Chimaev turned it down. It doesn't really matter. Because, guys, what if? I'm not asking you who'd win. Forget that. We're in a whole different story. If we're going to fight Chimaev versus Pereira, we're going to do it at 205 pounds. We're in a whole different story. We're not doing X's and O's. Make a goddamn bit of difference. There is no championship. There is no contendership. There is nothing on the line. There is a straight-up street fight. You have the Chechnyan gangster taking on, what do you want to call Pereira? He's a native. He's an indigenous. He comes out. He shows a representation. See him all dressed up in that tribal gear? It was awesome. It was awesome. And if those two dudes were going to fight at 205 pounds, you're not talking about rankings. You're not talking about anything other than a personal beef. We don't get those very often. We don't get those on short notice. The house would have been on fire. My prediction for you is there's a misunderstanding. I don't believe the UFC was ever going to make that fight. However, it sounds as though Pereira would have done the fight. Sounds as though he said yes. And it sounds as though Chimaev accepted. Or would have. But I want you to think about this question. I want to know which one you believe. But I want to ask you a real... Okay, don't miss the 205. They fight at 185. We know what they're fighting for. We know what they're fighting for. We probably could take the story a little bit further, which is winner draws right into, right? We could probably figure this out really quick. Give a good look at Adesanya, see if he's ready. Give a good look at Whitaker versus Paulo Costa outcome. Like, we start to have some real moving parts, but if they're fighting at 205 pounds, they're just fighting because they're pissed off. These two have never even met each other. I don't believe that Chimaev called out Pereira because he got some problem with Pereira. I think that he saw him and think, hey, I can take this guy down and go win a world championship. That's what I think. But you can work yourself into a shoot real fast. You go after a guy for above board competitive reasons, and all of a sudden he doesn't flinch. When you're used to guys flinch, all of a sudden it gets really weird and the reasons change really fast. And if they did that at 205 pounds when there was no championship on the line, that is as close to a street fight as you're ever going to see booked inside of that octagon. And I want to know, do you want to see it?